They're telling you the housing market is normalizing. They're wrong. What's actually happening is much worse, and we're going to show you the data that proves it. We're going through neighborhoods right now where sellers are panicking, and there's a specific reason why 53% of listings in one major city just slashed their prices. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this inventory explosion is different than anything you've seen since 2008. And we'll reveal which markets are about to see the biggest price drops in 2026. Let me start with what Redfin just confirmed, because this is massive. They're reporting that housing inventory just hit decade highs. We're talking about 4.7 months of supply nationally, the highest we've seen since July 2016. That's almost a decade. But here's what they're not telling you. New home inventory specifically just reached 481,000 units. That's an 18-year high. We haven't seen numbers like this since 2007, right before everything collapsed. Now, you might be thinking, okay, inventory is up, but isn't that just getting back to normal? That's exactly what the real estate industry wants you to think. But when you dig into regional data, you see what's really happening. And we need to explain something to you about how this inventory surge is hitting different markets, because there's a pattern here that's going to determine whether your area sees opportunity or devastation in 2026. But first, let me tell you about something that shocked us when we researched this. There's one major market where 61% of homeowners just said they'll never sell their house. Never. And this is creating a supply crisis that's driving prices in the opposite direction of what you'd expect. We'll show you which market that is and why it matters for the entire country. Let's look at Austin, Texas first, because this is ground zero for what we're talking about. Austin home prices have crashed 18 to 20% from their 2022 peak. We're talking about median prices dropping from $550,000 down to around $440,000 to $512,000, depending on which data source you use. But here's the shocking part. 53.4% of Austin listings have price cuts right now. That's the highest rate in all of Texas. Houses that used to sell in under 10 days are now sitting on the market for 47 to 50 days. Active listings are up 14.6% year over year. This is not normal market correction, people. This is panic selling. And Austin isn't alone. Phoenix is seeing 19.2% year-over-year inventory growth. They've got a 4.4-month supply now, and days on market have stretched to 61 to 75 days. Phoenix actually leads the entire nation in the percentage of price reductions among major metros. New listings are up 27.3% year-over-year. That's among the top 3 nationally. Then you look at Florida, and this is where it gets really scary. Tampa's home values dropped 4.2% year over year, with Zillow forecasting another 3.6% decline in 2026. But Cape Coral and Fort Myers, they're looking at a projected 10.2% price drop in 2026. That's double digits, people. Florida's condo market has completely cratered to a 9+ month supply. That's deep buyer's market territory. And here's something that's going to shock you. There's one expense in Florida that's now averaging over $6,000 a year per house. It's not taxes, it's not maintenance. It's something that's forcing people to abandon their homes entirely. And it's spreading to other states faster than anyone expected. I'm talking about insurance costs. Florida homeowners are paying $6,000 annually for homeowners insurance. When you factor in the hurricane damage from Helene and Milton, you see why people are fleeing. But it's not just Florida. Insurance companies are pulling out of multiple states, leaving homeowners with impossible choices. The entire Texas Triangle is showing similar stress. Dallas-Fort Worth median prices fell 2.4 to 5.7% year over year, with 51.7% of listings experiencing price cuts. Houston has 34,676 active listings, the highest inventory in Texas, with homes sitting for 91 days on average. San Antonio shows 50.5% of listings with price cuts. Now here's what's really important to understand. This isn't just about those Sunbelt markets. Remember earlier when I mentioned there's a specific reason why this inventory explosion is hitting different than 2008? It's because we have extreme regional divergence happening right now. While Austin and Phoenix are crashing, look at what's happening in Hartford, Connecticut. Zillow just named Hartford America's #1 hottest market for 2026. Inventory there is 63% below pre-pandemic levels, the largest deficit among the 50 largest metros. Home values increased 4.3 to 4.6% year over year, which is the nation's fastest growth. 66.4% of homes are selling above asking price, and only 16.5% are seeing price cuts. Typical homes sell in about 1 week. Buffalo, New York ranks second nationally, with prices jumping 10% year over year. Boston's inventory remains 30.3% below pre-pandemic levels, with 65% of homes selling above asking. New York City shows inventory 48.4% below pre-pandemic despite rising 17.6% year over year. So you've got Sunbelt markets with massive inventory explosions and price crashes, while Northeast markets are still experiencing severe shortages and price increases. This creates opportunities if you know where to look. Now, let me resolve that first thing I mentioned that shocked us. Remember I told you about a market where 61% of homeowners said they'd never sell? That's baby boomers nationwide. 61% of boomers say they never plan to sell. That's up 7 points from just 2024. 78% of older homeowners plan to age in place. Here's the crazy part. Boomers hold 28% of homes with 3+ bedrooms, while millennials with children hold only 14%. This is creating the supply constraint in northeastern markets, but it's also setting up something massive. An estimated 9.2 to 14.6 million older homeowners will exit homeownership by 2035 to 2036. But here's what nobody's talking about. There's one change happening right now that's about to break the mortgage lock-in effect that's been constraining supply for years. But here's something that's going to accelerate this whole process, and this resolves what I mentioned earlier about the mortgage lock-in effect breaking. For the first time since the pandemic, homeowners with mortgages above 6%, that's 21.2% of all mortgage holders, now outnumber those with sub 3% pandemic rates, which is about 20%. This is a critical inflection point, people. That lock-in effect that's been constraining supply for years is gradually fading. More people are going to be willing to sell because they're not giving up those ultra-low rates anymore. And this is happening right as affordability reaches crisis levels. The median existing home price of $405,400 requires a household income of about $118,530 to afford. The actual median household income is only $83,150. Monthly mortgage payments have risen 73% since the pandemic, from roughly $1,300 to $2,236. First-time buyers now represent just 21% of purchases, the lowest share since NAR began tracking in 1981. The median first-time buyer age just reached a record 40 years old. You want to know why we call this a housing apocalypse for certain markets? Look at what's happening with builders. Builder confidence collapsed to 37 on the NAHB Housing Market Index in January 2026. That's the 21st consecutive month below 50, which is the break-even threshold. Future sales expectations dropped below 50 for the first time since September. Housing starts fell 7.8% year over year, while completions plunged 15.3% year over year. Builders are responding desperately. 40% cut prices in January with an average reduction of 6%, and 65% are offering sales incentives. Major builders like Lennar saw average selling prices fall 6.7% year over year to $393,000, with gross margins compressing from 22.3% to 18%. D.R. Horton's home building revenue dropped 15% year over year. Please take 2 seconds to help me out and hit the like and subscribe if you find this video interesting so far. Each like, subscribe, and share helps support this channel and keeps us motivated to keep making you great content. Thank you. Now, back to it. At the same time, foreclosures increased 14% in 2025 to 367,460 properties, the highest since 2020. December 2025 saw 44,990 filings, up 57% year over year and 26% month over month. Bank repossessions jumped 101% year over year in December. Now, before you panic, let me give you some perspective. Current foreclosure activity remains 87% below the 2010 peak of 2.9 million. The filing rate of 0.26% stays below the 2019 pre-pandemic level of 0.36%. And there are structural differences from 2008 that matter. Homeowner equity sits at a record $35 trillion. Over 90% of mortgages are fixed rate versus the adjustable rate products that fueled the 2008 crisis. Mortgage delinquencies remain near historic lows. But here's what's really driving this divergence between regions. Baby boomers are creating a massive constraint on supply in certain markets. 61% of boomers say they never plan to sell. That's up 7 points from 2024. 78% of older homeowners plan to age in place. Boomers hold 28% of homes with 3+ bedrooms, while millennials with children hold only 14%. So you've got this situation where northeastern markets remain constrained by both boomer behavior and chronic underbuilding, while Sunbelt markets are getting hammered by overbuilding, insurance crises, and speculative excess unwinding. Meanwhile, investor activity is flatlined. Investors purchased 17% of homes in Q3 2025, but 8% of investor-sold homes sold at a loss, the highest in over 2 years. Large-scale institutional investors have actually been net sellers in aggregate, retreating particularly from Las Vegas with a 20% year-over-year decline in Florida markets. The rental market is showing this stress too. National multifamily vacancy hit 7.3%, a record high since 2017. National median rent fell 1.3% year over year to $1,356 per month, with rent declining for 5 consecutive months. Austin leads rent declines at negative 6.6% year over year, down more than 20% from its 2022 peak. Here's what we think is going to happen in 2026. The mainstream consensus forecasts gradual normalization. NAR forecasts existing home sales rising 14% in 2026, with prices up 4%. Zillow projects 4.3% sales growth with prices up 1.2%. Redfin expects 3% more sales with prices up just 1%. But we think they're missing the regional story. The data supports a housing apocalypse narrative, but only for specific Sunbelt markets experiencing inventory surges, price corrections, and cascading effects of insurance crises and overbuilding. Austin's 18 to 20% correction from peak, Florida's condo market at 9+ months supply, and the fact that 50% or more of listings in major Texas markets have price cuts, that represents genuine distress. Nationally, though, the evidence points toward what Redfin terms the Great Housing Reset, a years-long normalization rather than a crash. Active listings remain 5% below 2019 levels nationally. The Northeast and Midwest face 30 to 60% deficits versus pre-pandemic inventory. For you as investors, homeowners, or renters, here's what this means. If you're looking to buy, there are genuine opportunities emerging in Sunbelt markets that are entering buyer-friendly territory. Austin, Phoenix, parts of Florida, the Texas Triangle, these markets are seeing real price discovery for the first time since the pandemic. If you're in the Northeast or certain Midwest markets, the supply constraints that have driven prices up remain in place. The inventory apocalypse is regional and sector-specific rather than a systemic national crisis. The mortgage rate environment is actually improving. Rates have declined from their January 2025 peak of 7.04% to 6.06% as of January 15, 2026. That's the lowest in over 3 years. This 100 basis point drop pushed median monthly payments down 5.5% year over year to $2,413, the lowest in 2 years. Mortgage applications surged 28.5% week over week in early January, with refinances up 128% year over year. So the question is, what's going to happen in your location? What's going to happen in your city? The inventory growth we've seen has already decelerated sharply from mid-2025 peaks, suggesting the window for dramatic inventory-driven price changes may be narrowing in many markets. The housing apocalypse is here, but it's concentrated in specific markets that overbuilt, face insurance crises, and attracted speculative excess during the pandemic boom. For everyone else, we're looking at a gradual normalization process that could take years to fully play out. The key is understanding which category your market falls into, because that determines whether 2026 brings opportunity or continued challenges in your area. And if you want to know exactly what's happening in your specific city and zip code, we've been tracking this data closely. Let us know in the comments what market you're watching or what questions you have about your area. The data tells a different story in every region, and we want to make sure you have the information you need to make smart decisions in 2026. If you found this video interesting, please subscribe, share, and watch this one as well. We'll see you next time.